Welcome to The Explainer. Today we are diving deep into India's grand strategy. Now, from the outside, its foreign policy can look like a real mess of contradictions. But as we're about to see, there's a single, incredibly powerful logic driving every single move.
And this right here is the big puzzle that has so many people scratching their heads. India is a really important partner to the US and Japan in the Quad alliance, but at the same time, it flat out refuses to sanction Russia over the war in Ukraine. How is that possible? Well, the answer lies in a super simple rule of geopolitics.
To really get India's strategy, we've got to look at the world like it's a giant board game, and this game is governed by one very simple, very powerful rule.
People sometimes call it the Othello game principle. And no, it's not the board game itself, but it's a great metaphor for how alliances can just flip. The idea is so simple, but it explains so much. The country right next door to you? That's likely to be your rival. So you look past them to their neighbor as a potential friend to help you balance things out.
Okay, so let's apply this rule directly to India. When you look at its immediate neighborhood, two major adversaries just pop right off the map. They basically define the entire strategic landscape.
And here they are. These are the two fundamental threats that shape almost every single foreign policy decision India makes. You've got China to the northeast with all the border disputes, and you've got Pakistan to the west with the conflict over Kashmir that's been going on for decades. These aren't just ideas. For India, they are the day-to-day reality.
But here's the thing. These relationships didn't just appear out of nowhere. The alliances that seem so complicated today actually have really deep roots, forged way back in the high-stakes chess match of the Cold War. You can literally see the dominoes falling here. During the Cold War, the US allied with Pakistan to try and contain the Soviet Union. Now, if you're India, what does that look like? It looks like America is backing your biggest rival. So what do? You use that Othello game logic, and you turn to America's rival, the Soviet Union. This was never about ideology, it was pure strategy, a partnership that got locked in when Russia gave India the nuclear tech it needed to guarantee its own security.
All right, so with that history in our back pocket, let's fast forward to the 21st century. The game board has changed, and India is now in the middle of an even more complex balancing act.
In the last few decades, the biggest strategic challenge for India, and let's be honest, for most of the world, has been the rise of a much more assertive China. And that massive shift has forced India to look for a whole new set of friends to keep things stable.
And this is where the Quad comes into the picture. It's a strategic dialogue, a team-up between the US, Japan, Australia, and India. And its main purpose, really, is to act as a counterweight to China's growing influence in the region.
And that brings us right back to the central puzzle, doesn't it? On one side, India is a critical partner in a US-led effort to contain China. On the other, it refuses to join US-led sanctions against its old partner, Russia. How can both of these things be true at the same time?
Well, from New Delhi's point of view, it's simple. The number one, primary, long-term threat is China. Period. Everything else, and that includes the war in Ukraine, is seen through that lens. For India, these are just two totally separate issues in two totally separate parts of the world.
And, it's really important to get some perspective here. In the news, it often felt like the entire world sanctioned Russia. But the reality is, it was mostly just the Western alliance. Out of nearly 200 countries on the planet, we're talking about only around 20 nations that actually put on those heavy sanctions. So India's position, it's not as lonely as it might seem.
So all of this, all these moves that look contradictory, they all lead us to the very heart of India's grand strategy. It's a philosophy that explains everything, and it's a modern take on its classic policy of non-alignment.
The guiding principle is called strategic autonomy, and it's exactly what it sounds like. It means India will work with everybody, but it will never, ever let itself become dependent on a single great power. It refuses to be anyone's junior partner, not America's, not Russia's. It's all about having the freedom to make decisions based purely on India's own national interest. And this whole strategy really breaks down into three simple pillars. First, be strong on your own. Have a military, including nukes, that's so powerful that nobody would dare invade you. Second, be a pragmatist. Form alliances like the Quad to deal with very specific threats, like China. And third, be an opportunist. Keep friendly ties with countries like Russia so you can get vital stuff like affordable energy. It's a strategy of engaging with everyone all at once.
The source material uses this incredible metaphor for the kind of world we're heading into, Japan's Sengoku Jidai, its Warring States period.
This was a time with no single emperor in charge, but a bunch of powerful competing factions. That's the future India is betting on, a messy, multipolar world with several great powers.
And that really hammers home the ultimate lesson of India's strategy for all of us. In a world that's fracturing into different power blocks, tying your country's entire fate to one single ally is an incredibly dangerous gamble. At the end of the day, the only security you can really count on is your own.
So, as we watch India navigate this crazy new world, it leaves all of us with a huge question to think about. In a world that's breaking apart, where old alliances are shaky, what's the real path to security? India has chosen its answer. The question is, what will everyone else choose?